Simiyu House is actually a result of my student teaching experience. I graduated from IU Bloomington in 2007. But before I would graduate, I decided that I would do part of my student teaching in Kenya for 8 weeks. There's no running water, there was no electricity, and no indoor plumbing. And it only cost $50 a week to stay there. Part of the curriculum was to do a community service project. So some other guys and I joined together and decided to work with the local street kids. These kids are abandoned, orphaned, neglected, and addicted to glue and freedom. One of the youngest kids I met out there was 7 years old. These kids have somewhat of a faceless connotation. They're really only known as street kids. And that's where we got the name Simiyu. It's an all too common last name in Kenya, like Smith in the US. This is when I recognized a need for a resource. So I flew back to the US in December of 2007. I had to ask myself, would I be helpful as an individual, or would I be a real resource and even campaign for others to join me in the cause? Simiyu House began by seeing this need for a resource, but also a small conversation that ended with the simple idea that we can make a big difference by micro movements, which is still our motto today. I would travel back 3 more times in the next 5 years, and this is when we did much of the construction. We cut down some trees nearby, and we cut them into 2x4s with a chainsaw in order to build the frame of the house. We broke up the ground and created mud and used it to create the walls. I even designed kind of this modern / traditional mud hut bathroom. I'm not going to go into details, but it's definitely one of a kind in Kenya. We built a chicken coop because we've always had the idea of being self-sustaining in Kenya. Later, we built a volunteer house with more beds for groups like Engineers Without Borders, who would come out and install a clean water well. During this time, we worked with the street kids in the city and developed relationships. That was our main goal. But as we worked with them, we really realized that it's truly its own society in a sense, a brotherhood filled with violence and pain and hunger. I'll tell you a couple quick stories. I watched once 20 boys feasting out of a barrel of freshly dumped scraps. It's truly difficult to imagine. I once stood between a grown man and a 12-year-old boy who accidentally stepped on his shoe. The man pinned him up against this concrete wall and headbutted him. And that's what I watched as I approached the scuttle. Another time I handed out t-shirts to these street boys, and one boy put one on and immediately took it off, seeing a better color. Chris held it between his 2 fingers, accusing me of bringing shirts with bugs. No, that's called body lice. After a few years of work and study and experience, Chris and I had the realization and truly came to the point where we knew that we didn't have the manpower, the financial resources, and the knowledge to serve these kids the way they needed to be served. Our mission never changed, but the kids we would serve had to. We reorganized when board members alerted us to the fact that there were orphans who needed a resource who were within walking distance of the house we were sitting in. When we found that out, we switched gears and we started walking. Back in the US, I met a college student named Nathan Leduc at Checkpoint Bible Camp, and he told me his interest in missions and traveling to Africa. So I offered him to stay at Simiyu House in Kenya. He took me up on that offer, but I don't think he knew what kind of impact he would have. During his stay, he identified 30 orphans within 1 square mile of our compound. And just as a fun fact, his father Terry would go there a year later and follow up with his son's work. Once we had this information, we got straight to work. We immediately met the basic needs of 6 of those orphans and put them back in school by March of 2016, just 3 months later. And by January of 2017, we had 12 orphans whose basic needs had been met and who were ready to begin the school year. That's nearly half of our list in just 1 year. Everything Simiyu House has accomplished thus far can be seen as simply a collection of micro movements. It's a conversation, an email, a post on social media, a donation, writing a thank you note. And even the creation of this video can be seen as an example of a micro movement. Chris and I overcame many obstacles involved in running an international project. But we always had a clear and simple mission: to make the biggest difference in the lives of these children in need by making a micro movement each day. And that's Simiyu House, making a big difference by micro movements.